Let's see what we got here.
Okay.
You're live.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Carolyn Driver. I'm filling in for Bishop Kirby Clements, who's on another assignment tonight. And so we welcome you to our time together. I always love coming to Bishop Kirby's Saturday night service. It's like coming home. This is family to me. And I serve on Bishop's board. So anything I can ever do that will assist or help Bishop Kirby, I'm more than glad to do it. So we welcome everyone that's here. And it's good to see Penelope. I met Penelope over a decade ago at Beulah Heights. And she's the one who made the handouts for y'all the last time I was here. So we thank you for that, Penelope, and thank you for being here. Well, I want to talk about what I see in counseling, because I've been counseling like 44, 45 years. And I see the same thing all the time, decade after decade. And I felt like if I could share with y'all some of the major issues that I encounter all the time, and if y'all would take the advice, and if you would read the books that I'm going to suggest that you read that impact some of the topics I'm going to talk about, you could save yourself money and time from going to a therapist. The only reason you would really need to go to a therapist is if you do all that I'm going to share tonight and read all that I'm going to share with you. If you would take the knowledge and implement it, because knowledge has no power without implementation. And then the only time you probably would need a therapist is if you were having difficulty processing it all. Because it's a lot, but it's the same thing I encounter continually and all the time. It don't matter if it was yesterday or 44 years ago. It's the same stuff in counseling. There is one difference in counseling, and it's this. When I first started counseling, 100% of people that came to me that had been sexually abused as children or during their developmental years was female. About 20 years ago, that changed, and I'd say like 20% of the people I saw that was having sexual issues were men. Now, more men are willing to talk about what happened to them. And now I would say of the clients who come to me for sexual abuse, it's about 50% female and 50% men. So when you're sitting next to people, no matter where you are, whether it's here or if it's at church or if it's in some meeting or all the people you're passing in the grocery store, everyone has pain and hurt in their life. And people misbehave, their bad behaviors to medicate the pain that's in their soul. So to the best of your ability, always be kind, even when other people are not kind. Be kind and let love vibration come from you, because I'm going to tell you, people are hurting, and many of the people that are hurting you would never guess in 100 years. Because to see them and to see their presentation, you think they had it 100% together. And so the more healed you are in your soul, the more loving you become. And it's not with effort. You just become more loving the more healed in your soul that you are. And so I'm going to be like the Apostle Paul tonight when he wrote to the church and said, I'm just going to bring to your remembrance. A lot of what I'm going to share tonight, if you've been with me before, you've probably heard me share it at different times through the years, different topics. But I'm just trying to, when I was praying and thinking about what to do when I come here tonight, I thought if I could just tell them what the 5, 6 things that you see in counseling all the time, and if you're dealing with any of this, just work on it. Okay, so are you ready? Okay. The last 2 times that I was here, we really talked about thoughts, your emotions, because thoughts produce emotions, and that produces your behavior and your action. And I encourage you not to bebop through life, but to be intentional in your life and to boss your thoughts. Don't let your thoughts boss you. And I reminded you that 5% of your behavior comes from the conscious mind, 95% comes from the subconscious mind. So we have to work at reprogramming our subconscious mind. And positive thinking is not, it's good to be a positive thinker, but that's not reprogramming the mind. It helps and it assists. But what you, how you think all day, the words out of your mouth, what you say, what you do, and even the authority figures in your life, what they have said and how they've affected you, is recorded in the subconscious mind. So if you're going to start an inner healing journey, you want to work on the subconscious mind. The conscious mind is the gatekeeper. It determines which thoughts can come in and which thoughts have to leave. And the thoughts that you let in, that you meditate on and you nurse and rehearse, whether they're positive or negative, that's what programs your subconscious mind. And that's why we ask people to do affirmations, because your subconscious mind can hear your voice and recognize your voice better than another voice. And so when you've heard declarations and affirmations, that's to help in assisting the subconscious mind to receive different information than it's been given. And so with the thoughts, with the emotions, and your words and your choices, we could help that by working on our perceptions. And I talked a little bit about perceptions when I was here the last 2 times, but perceptions is how you choose to interpret a situation with a person or an event. And you have complete choice over what perception you want to give to a situation. But people that come to me, I note that in our dialogues and them sharing with me, they have never intentionally on purpose chose a perception. And so they just bebop through life. Rather than when a situation happens, you just let whatever thought, whatever emotion, whatever behavior, without intentionally choosing. And I had been working with someone for some time because they were so negative, and all of their perceptions of anything always had a negative twist to it. And I kept trying to talk to her about having a different perception. And she said, well, I don't want to be in denial. Well, you're not in denial. You know exactly what happened with that person. You know exactly what happened with that challenge, except you are intentionally on purpose choosing how you want to process it. And I shared with you the last time I was here about with my husband, who didn't help me on a Tuesday afternoon and went off to the man cave. Y'all remember that? And my first perception, even after teaching this all these years, when I wasn't choosing, I was just letting perceptions come on their own, is that he don't care about you. He cares more about those guys than he does you. If he really loved you. So I'm now getting myself in to a bad place. But I did what I shared with you last time, a radical interruption. I stopped my foot and I screamed my name. And I said, is this how you want to feel? No. Well, how do you want to feel? Well, I want to feel joyful and loved. And so I intentionally on purpose changed the perception to, he's just excited about seeing the guys from Delta that he retired with. He hadn't seen in some time. This guy has turned an entire barn into a man cave. He's excited to see that. And once I changed my perception, my thoughts and emotions and my choices changed. So don't bebop through life. You intentionally on purpose choose what perception you want to put on a. And they were coming to me all upset and complaining about always having to bail him out. And so I talked to him about codependency, gave him some material, and I told him, I want you to sit down with him and tell him this is what we've been doing and why. But now we understand that we are crippling you. We really cripple people when he did that. I no longer do this, but at that time it scared me so bad. When people made a counseling appointment with me, it had to be a 2-hour appointment. The hour with me, but before me, they had to spend an hour in the sanctuary with God. And guess how many people kept their appointments? Very few. Because they'd get in there in the sanctuary, and I guess talking to God, they get it figured out. But but it was something. So the thing about your mind, your thoughts, your words, your choices. Work on that. Work on your perceptions. Choose the perception that you want. Then codependency. Work on codependency. You want to get out of that. And there's a book that you can read. It's called Codependent No More by Melody Beattie, Beattie. This is probably one of the first major books written about codependency. And it's been one of the bestseller lists for decades because I encountered this book 40-something years ago. Now, she deals with codependency from the point of dealing with people who are addicted to alcohol and drugs. Just don't pay attention to that. When you read her book, for each chapter, look for the principle. Because regardless, she's talking about drugs and alcohol. Your situation you're dealing with will probably be totally different. I don't have drug and alcohol issues in our family or extended family, never have. But that book helped me more than any book with my codependency because I didn't look at what she was dealing with. I took the principles that she was teaching and I started implementing the principles of that book, Codependent No More by Melanie Beattie. So you're going to be working on your thoughts and your words and your choices. You're going to be working on what you choose as your perceptions. You're going to be working on not rescuing and fixing other people. And it's really going to be hard. I remember being in Riverdale at a gas station. I was on one side pumping gas. These two guys were on the other side. And one guy asked the other guy directions to somewhere. The guy gave him directions, but I knew that the directions was wrong. The old Carolyn Driver would want to jump in and say, hey, that's not the right directions. And it just about killed me not to do it. But I was working on not being codependent. And, but you know, those guys, if I had done it, probably be mad at me. Or say something, nasty back to me because nobody was asking me about directions, but I was going to jump in there and fix it. And so when you start working on these things, you're going to mess up, but don't stop. Just start over. Just keep starting over and then it's like dribbling a basketball. When you first start dribbling, that ball runs everywhere, but you keep dribbling, you get where you can control it, right? It's the same thing of working on your perceptions and your codependency. You're going to mess up when you first start, but don't let that cause you to quit. Just keep working on it because the more you work on it and the more that you are aware, that you have an awareness. And that's another thing that I do now in working with clients. I ask certain questions to see if they have an awareness, because trying to work with someone that doesn't have an awareness that they have this issue is a waste of your time and their money. So I only work with people now who have an awareness. They know what it is and they want to work on it. Where before people would be sent to me for counseling or they'd come to me for counseling But when you started pointing out the issues, they don't think they have them. Well, wait till they are ready, and you can dismiss them in a kind way and just say, I can see you're not ready. Your awareness is kind of low in this area. So I'm going to release you from counseling. But down the road, if things change and this is an area you want to work on, I'm just a phone call away. I had one of Bishop Bronner's ministers that they had sent to me. I had to release him because he would keep the appointment where he wasn't doing the homework that I give between sessions. So I released him in a nice, loving way. And one of the ministers called me and told me about it and said he was so funny when he did it. He said, Dr. Driver fired me, but she did it in such a nice way, I couldn't get mad at her. So we can release people, but don't waste your time. I wasted years of trying to help people who didn't. I worked harder than they did. Don't work harder than other people. To release them because they're not ready. And you're just frustrating yourself and wasting your time, and they are wasting their money because they're not going to implement what they need to. So now, personalities. You really want to study personalities, because I've had too many men and women in marriage counseling with their second marriage, and they're in marriage counseling with me, to say if they'd had this information, they probably would still be married to their first spouse. We think everybody's supposed to be just like us, and they're not. So they don't process like us. And usually opposites attract. Penelope, if you don't mind me using your situation, she's a melancholy temperament. She's married someone who is sanguine. Is he sanguine phlegmatic? Yeah, but you're melancholy choleric. So they are double opposite. And when you're double opposite, you have to work even harder at understanding personality differences and practicing what you learn in order to make the marriage work. Me and my husband, we have one, he's choleric melancholy, I'm choleric sanguine. So our choleric, and I didn't know this in the early days of our marriage, and we'll be married 54 years next month, fought to who's going to be in control, who's going to be the boss. But then my sanguine, that likes people and likes the interaction, was get on his melancholy nerves. But his melancholy would rain on my parade. So we had to learn how to work with each other in that differences. And until you really master understanding personality differences, you're always going to be in conflict. And one of the main reasons that you stay in conflict is not only the lack of knowledge, but the lack of knowledge causes you not to understand their heart. Because the heart of Penelope is totally different than the heart. Is it Robert? Harold of Harold. And so if they don't understand these differences, they'll misinterpret what one of them says or what one of them does. One will see it one way, one will see it another. And when they're double opposites, they usually never agree on anything. And so they have to be committed to communication and learning communication skills to work it out. But if I didn't know this information, I just would think that my husband, doesn't like people, doesn't want to be around people. He don't want me to have fun. I can come up with all kinds of interpretations, but I know that the melancholy temperament, their emotional need is perfection, and they're not people persons. I mean, they have close friends, but a sanguine never meets a stranger, ever. If they can walk into a restaurant for the first time, and before they leave, know half the people in the restaurant, And those differences create issues. And there's 4 major temperaments: melancholy, choleric, sanguine, phlegmatic. Some people say, no, there's 8 temperaments. Others say, no, there's 16. Others say, no, there's 32. But if you know the characteristics of those 4, you'll see that those are just sub areas of the main 4. And because I've got all kinds of different personality evaluations in my files, but I only use the one that's in this book I'm going to recommend to you. And it's Your Personality Tree. Your Personality Tree by Florence Littauer. And learning this information about personalities can help you to have good relationships with your family, your church folks, the people at work. I've used it when I'd sit down in an airplane flying somewhere, and the person next to me, within 15 minutes, I would know what their primary, you're a blend of 2, but I'd know what their primary was. And then I knew how to dialogue and talk, because you don't approach each one the same when you want to speak. Who's had in their second marriage, who came to me for counseling, maybe 2 or 3 didn't tell me. Everybody else would tell me, Dr. Driver, if we'd had this, I'd still be married to my first spouse. That's how important this knowledge is. But you can dismiss this and say, oh, that was just Dr. Driver's opinion. I don't have to do well. I'm trying to make your life happier and easier. And the other area is gender issues. And y'all are familiar with this book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, by Dr. John Gray. Not knowing the differences in the male and female gender, because we have chemicals in our body that's different, and the space between our brain, the left and right side of our brain, in men, the space is wider than it is in women. So women can hear information or be asked a question, they can process it and come up with a decision right on the spot immediately. I didn't know that men couldn't do that. I mean, they can with simple things, but if it's a serious decision, you have to let them go to their cave and think about it. But I would used to stand there for my old cleric self. I'd ask Larry a question, and I'd be wanting an answer, and he's hemming and hawing, and I'm thinking he's just being stubborn, that he's just just being hard to deal with on purpose. I did not know I was asking my husband to do something that was biologically impossible. So now when I need a decision on an important thing, I go and I tell Larry what the issue is. And then I say, when do you think you could give me an answer on this? And he'll tell me. And I'll go back, and most every time he has an answer for me. But I was demanding an answer. And because he wouldn't give me an answer, I just thought he was being uncooperative and being a smart aleck. I didn't know I was asking him to do something that's impossible. Women talk to resolve their issues or to figure things out. Men go to their caves. And when men go to their caves, they become silent. And then we become cave busters. We're at the mouth of the cave. What's wrong? What's happened? You don't love me anymore? We start putting a wrong interpretation on men going to their cave because we didn't realize that that's how they resolve issues. We resolve issues through verbalization. That's why I tell people when I'm either doing marriage counseling or pre-marriage counseling, don't make your fiance or don't make your husband your girlfriend. And by doing that, trying to talk their ear off. As women, we can talk. We can go out to eat and spend 2 or 3 hours together, talk, get home, be home 30 minutes, and be back on the phone and talk like we hadn't even seen each other. And that's not how men are. It's different. So don't be a cave buster. And then I tell men, when you get home from work, if you'll give your wife 15 minutes of undivided attention, listen to everything she wants to say, then you can have the rest of the evening free. And when I used to teach this at Buell,
Stop.
thank you.
You're still there.
I accidentally turned this off, and you listen, he'll put us back on. But another area is unforgiveness. And people choose not to forgive because they don't understand. They think by forgiving, you're letting the other person off the hook. No, you're untying yourself emotionally from them. Forgiveness is never, never, never for the other person. Forgiveness is always for you, and it's to free you. And then sometimes people actually go through the verbal forgiveness. They'll say, I forgive Penelope for such and such and such and such. But when I see Penelope, or I hear someone say her name, or I see her name written, I have all these icky emotions. I think I haven't forgiven her. So here I am again trying to forgive her. No, forgiveness is an act of your will. So it's an act of my will. I chose to forgive her and went before God and forgave her. Now I have to pray for my icky emotions to line up with my decision. Because you forgave, it's just that your emotions have been trained to respond another way. And now you have to retrain your emotions. So now you, once you've forgiven and then you start having these icky emotions about that person, just say, Father, help my emotions to line up with my active will to forgive Penelope. You might have to say that 100 times a day until you one day your emotions will line up with the act of your will, and then you're really free. The freedom that you have is unreal. Now, in this book, Search for Significance, I recommend that you read this because it has, I consider this the foundational book of inner healing, because it deals with fear of failure, fear of rejection, and performing for approval. And I always would, for inner healing, I always start with this book. And this book has, in the back, it has the workbook that goes to the 13 chapters. But in this book, Dr. Robert McGee, he lists 15 reasons people don't forgive. And I want to go through them quickly. The book, he explains them in detail. The offense was too great. They won't accept responsibility for their offense. They're not truly sorry. They never asked to be forgiven. They'll do it again. They've already done it again. Well, I don't like them. They did it deliberately. If I forgive the offense, I'll have to treat the offender well. Someone has to punish them. Something keeps me from forgiving. If I'm a hypocrite, I'll be a hypocrite if I forgive because I don't feel like forgiving. I'll forgive, but I won't ever forget. I'll forgive because I have found an excuse for the offense. And he goes into details, but we have to forgive. If you want to be forgiven by God, we have to forgive, and we will be forgiven to the level we forgive. For example, if this piece of paper represented all of forgiveness, and someone offends me and they ask for forgiveness, and I give them that much, when I go before God, what can he give me now? That much. We are forgiven to the level that we forgive others. And I don't think there's anybody on this earth that is worth standing between me and God. And so when you forgive as an act of your will, then start praying for your emotions to line up with that decision. And so tonight, what I'm asking you to do is really to start a self-development program. And when you first start out really working on yourself, it can, because you mess up so much and have to start over so much, you might want to quit, but don't quit. Just keep working on it. I promise you, it'll get better. It might take some time, but it'll get better. And then you just keep working on it. Then this becomes who you are. You don't have to work at it anymore. And so that's a level of freedom. And I've been working on myself. I have to go back and figure it up. It's either 44 or 45 years. I've never missed a day. I know it's hard for people to believe that. But in all these years, I never missed a day of working on me. And so someone who started out that was as a mess, now I know what true freedom is. But when you get as free as I am now, you have another issue. People don't understand people who are free because we don't respond like what's considered normal. We don't interpret what would be considered like normal. And so they think we're weird. But you're so free, it doesn't matter that they think that, you know. And so you want to start with search for significance, to work on inner healing. You want to really understand personalities and personality differences. Know how God wired you and wired others, so you know how to relate to them correctly. You want to study the gender, so you know the differences in men and women. You want to stop rescuing and fixing. You would want to get free of your codependency. Because when I was codependent, I can remember back in the day, people either really loved me or they couldn't stand me. And I never could understand why, because my heart was always good in terms of relating to the people. But it was because of all my rescuing and fixing when I hadn't been invited to. So people who love me really love me, and people who couldn't stand me. But now, since I walk in this freedom, because I implement all of this, people tell me, I feel like I've known you all my life. And so if you will study these things and implement these things, you can come to a place of freedom in God that's awesome. It's a freedom I don't have words to describe. But you're never afraid of failing. You're never afraid of rejection. You're never performing for approval. You're not rescuing and fixing. You're not being offended at everything that someone says. Because some of my clients that are Christians and some of them are leaders in the church, they're offended at everything. And you try to talk to them, you know, about you've got to have a different perception. I can't even remember the last time I felt offended or hurt, because I choose to put a different perception on all the events. And I really believe my perception, and I operate by the perception that I'm choosing to put on it on purpose. And so I don't get offended. I don't get hurt. It's just a place of freedom that it's hard to describe, because when I was younger and such a mess, if someone would say this can make you free, I really didn't know what they were saying to be free. But there is a level of freedom that you can have if you're willing to do the work. Okay. Any question before we close out? Any comment? Any thoughts? Well, has this been helpful?
Yes.
You are okay. As we close out, I want you to share with a person, or you may have to have 3 in your group or 2. Share with someone what you're going to work on, because you want to be different in that area. I want you to work on all of it, but you can't work all of it at the same time. But you know which one you need to start working on first, I think, from what I've shared. So thank you for joining us out there. We just ask the Lord to bless you. Ask God to keep Bishop Kirby safe and sound. And we wish that this week your life would be filled with unexpected blessings. And look for God in every situation, because He is there. Good night. Bye-bye. Thank you.